appreciate of support would be to watch the film and try to be more engaged in and being more engaged in talks with the creator. Yeah, I think if there were more genres of local films, I would watch, especially like more sci-fi and more romance local films. I find that among the few that stand out, or the few that many people talk about, they don't really appeal to me genre-wise. I think the support in Singapore actually comes from NEAC and a lot of non-governmental organizations, non-profit organizations. But otherwise, I don't think, from my perception, there's not that much proactive support among the local community to rally and to watch and support these local films. It's more of like they're trying to market to us, they're trying to advertise to us, but like it's not really like coming from. I think simply because they are local. I think perhaps like as we're Singaporean, we're kind of neither here nor there, and like you can see that with our accent, where we tend to, when we go overseas, the first thing we tend to try to ditch is our accent when we speak with someone else for it, and it comes with that dissonance that we try to embrace things that are foreign and try to relate to them more than we do like to relate to things that are local, because we have such a fractured identity. Therefore, I think that local films don't receive that amount of support because there's an amount of pushback to being Singaporean, and there's a little bit of shame that comes with that. I think the support from local filmmakers has to come from the filmmakers themselves. I think if the filmmakers themselves were involved in community outreach, in sharing the value of films toward building the Singaporean culture, and sort of more retrospective looks at previous films in Singaporean film history, I think it would be quite interesting to revise and see how far we can.
No, not necessarily, because I think that there isn't much rapport for local films here because of like how Americanized we are actually.
No, I feel like the Singapore, like the film market is very small itself. Like people still prefer those films like Hollywood films because these films are generally like filmed on a bigger budget, whereas like Singaporean films, like they are filmed on a smaller budget.
Support for local films, I guess, is more promoted by local creators than the fan bases of these local creators who will support those local films in return.
I think when it comes to support for local films, right, to be honest, I think the support only comes in when these films are actually recognized. Like for example, what's that one film I forgot? But yeah, there was this one film like talking about the maid and that movie itself. Yeah, that film only like when it received critical acclaim, that's when people started supporting the film, started watching it. Or else, that's like in general, what I'm trying to say is that the Singaporean films only receive support when it's really brought to the attention of the viewers itself. Yeah, themselves.
I think I'm not too sure about that, but I think that maybe more exposure, I guess. Like, we don't really have this culture of supporting local creators in Singapore, especially when it comes to even small like creators such as YouTubers, I think. So it wouldn't be easy to like create rapport for even larger filmmakers that produce films and like movies and all that.
I would say that the government can actually like, because as previously mentioned, like our Singaporean films are built shot on a like smaller budget, right? So the government can actually like sponsor some of the films so that the films can more Singaporean films can be made now. And apart from that, I think government can actually like encourage like all those people that wants to be like film directors in the future. Maybe you can actually hold some training programs, etc. Yeah. I think they cannot achieve by themselves. They actually do need collaboration. Like when you say exposed to like the Singaporean consumers, right? You actually need to find people that can actually market and advertise your film so that it can actually reach out to a wider range of audiences. So I think it's more of the networking in order to gain a wider exposure for their films. Yeah.
To a large extent, it probably is true. Simply because if you look at the number of Singapore films, local films that's out there actually, and how many people actually watch it, if you look at the statistics, it's actually quite depressing. So actually, the reason why there's such a small number of screenings or such a small number of films being made, possibly is also because the demand is not there. And so cinemas are also not giving the time slots. People are not turning up to watch also. So definitely, I agree to a large extent it is.
I would say that the casual movie-going Singaporean probably has a stigma against local films simply because I think that our culture is one where Singaporeans grow up not really valuing arts as much, especially locally made art. So there is definitely a stigma, and that shows in the kind of numbers we get from the box office for local films. And I think the stigma also exists because the risk of movie making in Singapore is very high. So the kind of films that get made and funded also tend to be of certain genres and certain types or from certain directors. So yeah, I guess there's some fatigue as well because Singaporeans, on top of already having a lack of appreciation to begin with for local art, also find the films that do come out very tiring, and they're probably quite bored of it as well. So it is a difficult cycle to break out of.
I actually directed more for TV programs, right? I produced some independent films. I think the challenge is always finding money, because every film that you want to do, you want to have the money to do it. So essentially, it is actually gathering the financial means to actually get it made. So actually, once you get the money, the next challenge is actually forming the team to actually get it done, and getting people to agree to the schedule that you need to put together. So I think, in a way, it's the main challenge. Actually, it's financial. Then, following the financial difficulty, it is basically trying to get all the logistics that you need, from scheduling the cast that you need, from getting the crew that you want, from the locations that you want, and making everything work out. And things always never work out. So I think those were the difficulties that actually take place when you actually have to actually produce a film. In terms of producing, I think most people will probably ask, what does a producer do? They have no idea. It's a very common response I give is, if you say a person directs, you know what a person does, what a director do. If it's the camera operator, you know what he does, right? Or what she does, she operates the camera. But a producer, what does a producer do? Most of the general people outside don't really know what the producer actually does. So a lot of times it's actually a huge question mark.